Welcome to another episode of Icon Presents. Today, I am joined by the co-founder of Epicverse Studios, podcaster and writer. Ladies and gentlemen, Icon Presents Epic Mike.
Send me $500 to eat a full cake on stream. I started slurring my words halfway through. I don't remember any of that stream. Literary Scrub says, how's the diet going, Mike? It was going well until I offered to, I sold myself out for cake. I'm not starting an OnlyFans. Oh, hold on. If you want to proof in the pudding, go look at like the ancient Greek statues. They're not a bunch of overweight dudes and a bunch of like gross women with weird faces. They're like, yo, get hot chicks and hot dudes and make statues of them.
Wait,
and they'll
dudes?
stick around forever.
Wait,
huh?
hot dude?
Well,
Wait,
who said
what?
that?
Oh, no.
No, you're not about to speed past it like you didn't say that.
I was saying it from the perspective of other people.
Mike,
Now, hold on a minute now.
Mike.
Welcome, Epic Mike. How you doing?
Hey man, thanks for having me. I'm doing good. Been a long time coming, trying to, remember to answer my emails. That's 100% on me. But no, man, I'm glad to be here. I'm glad we were able to make this work today. So.
Yes, man. I'm looking forward to this, man. I've been watching you, been a fan of your content for some time now. And like I was telling you before, I had Criticless Blaine on the show, and he was like, "You gotta talk with Epic Mike." And you guys do some work together and all that stuff. And I was already a fan, so it was a no-brainer to me. I was like, "All right, let's make it happen." So, man, I'm excited. I want to talk to you all about your film journey, your streaming, all that kind of stuff. And one of the things that I get to kind of talk to you about, that some of the guests that I have on the show with, they don't quite, pay attention to all the pop culture things that go on that I do, but I feel like you got your finger on the pulse a little bit more. So I am looking forward to kind of touching bases on that, because I'm interested in how the things that going out there affect with you, what you do.
Yeah, so absolutely, man.
So with that being said, give the people a little bit about your background and what you're into.
Primarily, I'm a internet content creator. I kind of hate that term, but it is what it is. I'm a part of a bigger group of people on YouTube called Geeks and Gamers. Jeremy, the founder of that, brought me in, I don't know, 8 years ago now. I started doing Modern Warfare streams with him, and then kind of grew from there. I'm also best friends with Josiah Rises, who's a much bigger YouTuber out there, and we've been friends for a long time. So yeah, man, I kind of just been circling around the internet for a long time. Decided one day, I need to pull the trigger on making my own stuff, ranting on my own, so I don't have to keep telling my wife all the same stories over and over again. And that's kind of all she wrote. Since then, I started on Twitch, migrated from Twitch to Kick, and then I started on YouTube last year, in April of last year. So it's been just over a year now, and YouTube's been awesome, and I'm really glad I pulled the trigger on it. So.
Yeah, man. I mean, I appreciate your, I've been watching your podcasts that you do, you do with Josiah, and Ben and all of that. And what's the Asian kid's name? I can't think of
Phil?
his name. Yeah, Phil.
Yeah.
This dude is hilarious. I'm trying to figure out, I think he's local. I know he's somewhere around California, I believe.
I have to get you guys in touch.
Yes, I think so. And I'm like, yo, but he's absolutely absolutely hilarious. So I love checking in your stream. Your guys' podcast. You guys stream that on Thursdays, right?
Yep. Every Thursday
nights. Yep. Yes. Okay, cool. So yeah, man, and your tier ranking system and all that stuff. It's just a ton of fun to cover the pop culture and different things. Why Captain America failed and why Jurassic Park is going to beat out Marvel and DC. It's that whole all that type of stuff. It's a wild ride, but you got the Epic Verse poster in the background, and I know you're big into the independent film space and supporting film and kind of dissecting film and all that kind of stuff. Can you give me a little bit about your background in film?
Yeah. Well, like I think like almost everybody that starts out in film, I just start out like I love movies. Like my mom has always been really big into it. She used to have like this massive catalog. We had like almost 2,000 movies at one point. And I watched all of the ones that I was allowed to watch. But yeah, I've always been like really into film and just enjoying storytelling in general. I'm just a fan of good storytelling. I mean, like I read a ton of books as a kid, read all the classics. As soon as I was able to like learn how to start reading, I had a little bit of like, this is exclusive because I don't tell people about this a lot, but like, I didn't know how to like read until I was about 7. Okay. I don't know why it just never clicked. I could read some things, but I was terrible at it. And then one day it just clicked for me. And then shoot, by the time I was in 3rd grade, I was reading Oliver Twist and all this stuff. Like I read everything that I could get my hands on. And then, movies were kind of a revelation for me, and then, I've also been into like, tabletop RPGs and the storytelling aspect of those things like D&D and stuff. There's just all these different aspects and avenues for storytelling. I'm big into video games, especially narrative driven video games and stuff. So, it was kind of like a no brainer that eventually I'd want to get into something. And it kind of all started. I was right out of high school. I started this job working at a factory, and I was bored out of my mind. And I was just trying not to it was just monotonous. And I was like, what do I do? Like, how do I keep myself from going crazy? And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna start coming up with an idea for like a TV show. So I started like brainstorming this idea for this TV show. And I came up with all these characters, and I started outlining this whole show and the different characters and the different story arcs. And I started researching tropes and story, hero's journey and what that looked like and how to, change that and stuff. And so I followed this and had this whole show fleshed out. And I was like, dude, I love this. This is great. And then life took over and I just got too busy and I never did anything with it, but
it happens.
Yeah, man. It was kind of an inevitable thing. And then I met Josiah and me and him both love movies, and we talked and came up with all these ideas and always had these like ideas in the background. And then 2020 happened. And I went and learned how to do screenwriting and went to this, through this course on screenwriting and met all these really cool people that work in the industry and a lot of producers and screenwriters and all this stuff. And they all encouraged me. And I had a mentor who works in the industry, and she helped me do my first script. And she was like, yo, I think you got a lot of talent. You need to keep doing this. I want to see your stuff one day. I want to read your stuff. I want to watch your movies one day. And it was kind of a wrap from there. Ever since then, it's just kind of been trying to figure out how to find an avenue to get into the industry,
I got you, man. I would tell you your journey with writing and different things like that, similar to my own. I was always big into, films, even though it's funny because my cousins, they tell me that I don't have enough credits, or I don't have the, and what they mean by credit is there's certain movies that I've never seen. That people are like, they're like, that's like, to be able to judge on what a good movie is, their stance is you have to have been able to see these other movies, to see these really great movies, to be able to judge whether or not this movie, because something will come out. Like I mentioned to you, I can't stand Thor Ragnarok. That movie that's a good first half of that movie is to me, I'd watch a lot of other Marvel movies before I turn that movie on. And that movie, like, I just like, it's for me because of the tone and the way the story was told and all that it was like, hey, they forgot what it was. Now I won't call myself a purist, but I don't need funny Thor. I also don't really care for that. So when people say Thor Dark World was too dark, and the first Thor and all that kind of stuff, and people wanted it to lighten up for that. That's kind of where I started to fall off, actually, because Thor was never really that type of character for me. Same reason why I don't really care for the Loki show. Loki, the show Loki, the first season was no. The second season for me was pretty solid, but it was a big step up for that. But that's because they kind of refocused things, and Loki was back in the spotlight for things. But I still think the best thing recent Marvel has put out that was Loki came from a What If episode, and it was like the last few minutes of that episode where I think it's the one where I think it was Hank Pym was killing off the Avengers. And it's in that episode where you get Loki, and he basically takes over the US. And it takes me back to Avengers, the original Avengers Loki. Yep. And I was like, yo, that's the one. I got a poster hanging up in my office right now of Loki sitting on a throne. I forget the writer's name was Brian something. Man, I'm gonna have to tag him in this, but man. He's sitting on the throne, and it's the Loki with, the long horns. And he's sitting there, and he has the Tesseract in one hand. The Infinity Glove is at his feet. Thor's hammer and Iron Man's helmet is laying down. Captain America's shield is on the ground, all at his feet and everything. And he looks so menacing. And it's awesome. That's the Loki I like. Yeah, you have the one. And I think the MCU did a solid job of kind of developing and kind of showing his growth or whatever like that. But when they did the show, it was like a no-go. But the whole point and the reason why I bring that up is because my guys always tell me, they're like, Antoine, you haven't seen movies like I've never seen Pulp Fiction. And so then they're like, no, if until you've seen that, you can't tell us what a good movie is. And I understand that. But I still think, hey, if I haven't seen some of the things that you deem as great stories, and I'm looking from my view as these stories that I can see, and they don't match up to what most people consider good stories now. Because the things that I say, hey man, that was a really good movie. Like, then most people would typically do that. Critics and all that kind of stuff. When it's like, most of the time people would appreciate that. And I'm like, then my stance is still valid. That's just the way I see it.
Yeah, I think a critique is a weird thing because it's all based on your understanding of things. And I think there's a threshold where if after a while of critiquing things or watching things, you can become a bit of like a movie snob. Yeah. I'm a self-admitted movie snob. I realized it one day. I was like, I've seen too much behind the curtain to now know, okay, I'm not going to be able to appreciate certain things. Like I could still watch like a Fast and Furious movie and enjoy it because I know I got to shut my brain off. I know that I'm not watching Shakespeare or anything, but there's like movies that fall in between that are like not necessarily popcorn flicks and not necessarily like moving grand epics or, things like that. And those stories can become hard to sort through, and it can be hard to be objective about certain things. It's like a really good example right now is Daredevil Born Again. I know some people really liked it. Some people loved it. Some people enjoyed it for what it was. I didn't like any of it, but that's because I loved the Netflix Daredevil so much, and I thought the writing quality is so phenomenal. And to see this be a continuation of that is a slap in the face to what I think is great art. I think it's important to because that's the thing. Everybody has their favorite movies. They go, "What? You haven't seen this?" I still get that, and I watch a ton of movies. But it's like I think it's important to watch things that are, I would almost argue, are deemed some of the top of like excellence. Like I just recently watched Breaking Bad. I regret that I didn't watch it a lot sooner. Oh yeah, because it's great. It's a guy writing at a high level, actors all at a high level. And so it's like, if, can you say you can critique basketball if you don't know who Michael Jordan is? Probably not. But can you say you could critique basketball if you don't know like what, Dennis Rodman contributed to basketball? Maybe. Yeah. I mean, he's still a legend in his own right, but you could argue that, you don't necessarily have to know everything. I know people that are film snobs and watch all kinds of movies that don't like anything Quentin Tarantino's done. Don't watch his stuff at all.
Yeah.
I get it, So yeah, I think there's a balance to it all. And at the end of the day, it's all about personal taste. And that's what's important. So yeah.
100%. So if you were to give a recommendation on or something like when you're entering the field of film production and writing and different things like that, you're going to have those stories and those things that kind of stick with you, that kind of shape your view. Basically, as your Mount Rushmore of movies, and I'm not going to ask you to create your Mount Rushmore of that. I've watched Tuesday night main event enough to know that asking that question is going to send us down an entirely different path. But if you were to say, "Hey, this is where these were super impactful for you," what would those movies be for you? Just give me a couple.
Movies that changed my perspective on filmmaking. Mm-hmm. The Matrix, it's my favorite movie of all time. I'll always mention it in any conversation.
It's funny, that's a movie that I saw when I was younger, and a lot younger, and I haven't seen it in a long time. I don't really remember it. It's gonna be one of those things where I'm gonna go back and watch it, and it's gonna feel fresh to me because it's been so long since I've seen it.
Yep. The Matrix is one of people don't realize how influential that movie was, for good and for bad. But it shaped movie making for the next 20 years. People were still doing all the slow motion stuff and trying to recapture that old school, kung fu movie. Essentially, The Matrix is like a live action anime. It's one of the closest things we've ever gotten to a live action anime that's its own IP. It's its own original thing. It's so well done that way. So yeah, The Matrix is at the top of the list. I would argue, if you haven't, most people have, but if you haven't seen the Lord of the Rings movies,
of course, man, that is top tier there.
It is top of the, it is. It's so mind blowing that we're still to this day watching them and going, how did they do this? Or how can I attain that level of excellence?
I'm gonna tell you, my hot take on that though is I also enjoy the Hobbit movies. I know
that is a hot take.
That is a hot take. I enjoy the Hobbit movies, man.
I like the first one. I like the first one, but I don't like the rest of them very much.
You don't like the rest of them? Oh man,
I like parts of them. Smaug is great. That is that's Peter Jackson at his best. Is Smaug, and the conversation with Bilbo. That's excellent. But there's other things I have my takes with those movies. But I get it. I know some people that love those movies. It doesn't matter to them. They love them, and I won't ever knock anybody for that.
I'm also a prequel fan, so I get it. This.
Yeah. I like the prequels too. Yeah. The Matrix is one of them. Lord of the Rings, if you haven't watched those, I know some people that haven't. I would argue that everybody at some point in time should pick a Tarantino movie and watch it.
I got you. Yeah.
My go-to, my favorite one is Django Unchained. I actually think it is his best movie that he's ever done. Yeah.
Okay.
It's one of his best movies. Kill Bill is a close second. I love Kill Bill.
Yeah.
The thing is,
might have been one of my first ones that I ever watched, and I absolutely love that. I watched certain movies that I watched with my parents at a young age that I'm like, that's an interesting one to watch with your parents, like Scarface. My dad was out. And I think getting his haircut. Me and my brother were just hanging out. And my mom was like, "Y'all ever seen Scarface?" He's like, "No." Yeah. So we watched Scarface.
That's awesome.
She also made us watch a couple horror movies that scarred me. It jacked me up. It's you remember the Texas Chainsaw Massacre? You know the scene where they put the chick on the meat hook? That one right there, that hurts me till this day. Yeah. But then also there was this movie called High Tension. It's I think it's it's filmed in the UK or whatever like that. And the premise of that is you got these two friends and they go to stay at this house, and one of them gets kidnapped and the other one's trying to go rescue her. Yep. And in case you ever watch it, I'm not going to spoil the plot for you, but if you just look it up, I'm telling you that movie is going to trip you out. It was it was a trip. I'm like, do you like horror movies?
No.
No? Okay, gotcha. You're not.
I can appreciate them, but I don't like them. Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. I don't go out of my way to watch them. I don't like suspense movies too much. I like the ones that if there's a monster or whatever like that, I can get behind that because that one's separated from reality. Once it crosses over to, hey, that neighbor is now going to go murder this entire family, then that's where I have a problem with that because it's too close to home. I start looking at people sideways.
Yeah, you're like, I don't know about that guy. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
No,
man.
I feel that. Yeah, man. I would. Those are the movies I could think of off the top of my head right now. I mean, there's a lot of them that I can always like go to or think of. Another one that I've been thinking about a lot recently that I love this movie. There's a movie called Warrior. It stars Tom Hardy and Joel Edgerton. And
it is on my Amazon Prime wish list right now or watch list right now.
Oh yeah, it is so good. It's this weird indie movie about MMA. It totally does not understand how MMA works for the most part, but it's this beautiful, like weird film that kind of just sits in this weird spot in time where I was like, man, they don't really this is phenomenal movie. It's like a phenomenal movie and great storytelling. And it just kind of fell into the cracks. And anybody that's ever seen it always loves it. But I mean, a lot of people have never even heard of it. It's definitely worth your time. It's a great watch. And I appreciate where it sits like in indie films. So yeah.
When it comes to your take on films and all that, like you mentioned how you can kind of become I guess biased, or when you have that feeling of like, hey, you've seen enough or you've known enough, or so it kind of ruined the experience. And I understand that 100%. I've gotten into dissecting films and all that kind of stuff where some people are like, man, you look at things too serious. It's not that serious or whatever like that. You don't want to ruin the fun for other people. That's why when me and my wife were watching Ahsoka, she knew I was a fan of Ahsoka from the Clone Wars, the show. And so she knew I was a fan of that. So she was excited to watch that with me. And then I was getting her into Star Wars. I had her go through and watch all the original trilogy and the prequel trilogy. And we were like, hey, the sequel trilogy, we have watched that. Unfortunately, the only thing recent that they've put out that we actually enjoyed was Rogue One. Rogue One is always like, that's the one of her favorite ones from the new Star Wars stuff. Everything else, she's like, no, I can't. So we were sitting there watching two things. We watched Ahsoka, but prior to that, we watched Kenobi.
Okay.
And we were sitting there watching those, and like with Kenobi, I tried doing this with both of them. I said nothing. I'm hating this show. I'm like, this is ridiculous. Oh, yeah. And Reva is one of the most annoying characters I have ever seen on TV. Yeah. And I'll put it this way so that people can't, as a black man with a black daughter and black family members. Yep. When people, it irritates me when they were like, when people were criticizing the character and they started trying to do the whole race thing and saying, hey, you can't criticize her because she's black and all that kind of stuff. It's annoying because I'm like, yo, you see me? That character is trash. I could have said it, but I didn't say anything. And then like, we were sitting there and I think it was like the third or fourth episode. My wife was like, I don't think this is a good show. And I said, it's not. This is absolute trash. Yes. And so we just started going. And same thing happened with Ahsoka. It was one of those things where it's like, I have people that are like, oh man, this show is great. And I'm like, Rosario Dawson's moving like her age right now. Like she is not embodying Ahsoka right now. I saw a clip from it today and somebody was like, what does they say? Lightsaber battles or whatever are not the same as the way they used to be. And it was like, man, she's moving so slow. She's moving her arms and just twisting the sabers in her hands. And I'm like, nah, man, Ahsoka was explosive. And that was one of the things that like made that character so interesting for her because of her style and all that stuff. Yeah. And I get it. It's one thing to be animated, but I've seen girls that do this. Like I go to cons and I follow these Instagram accounts and you have people that go out of their way. They're like, I'm going to make it look like this. They don't look at what current Disney does with Star Wars. And what they don't try to imitate that. They go back and they imitate the Ray Parks and the greats that made that embodied it and made it what it actually is. So
absolutely,
it's funny how you talk about being how kind of turning into a movie snob, because that's literally what they call me around my family would call me, Antoine, he's a movie snob for that. Yeah. But so I'm gonna ask you a question, and and I want your opinion on this. You saw The Batman with Robert Pattinson. Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, so here's my take on that. I actually like that movie. I like that movie. I'm not really a big fan of Robert Pattinson's depiction of Batman. But I like the production of the movie. And for me, that movie was produced well enough for me to actually enjoy a lot of more it had enough redeeming qualities to take me out of the I didn't care for the emo Batman thing. That wasn't really a big vibe for me. I didn't hate the full concept of it. It was just like, okay, kind of laying it on a little thick here. I need him to have some progress. I need him to be Bruce Wayne at some point in this. It was like, okay. But I've watched so many videos and interviews and all that, and breakdowns of the sound design, the color grading, color correction, all that. And as somebody that, as a video editor, it's like, man, I have such appreciation for that. I look at that movie and like, I just put it on. If I want inspiration on how to, achieving like cinematic color grading, you can just go watch that. If I want cinematic sound design, I just go watch that movie. Yeah. That's my feel on it. And then I did enjoy a lot of elements to it. But the Batman piece of that, it's like, and it's sad because, that's supposed to be the main focus. The movie is called The Batman. And the Batman was probably the weakest point in there. No, the Riddler was, but he was a close second. Yeah. Give me your take. I see the look and I see the things that are going on in your head.
If anybody knows me, was watching this and heard you bring up the Batman, they immediately... I have a lot of takes. I am a big Matt Reeves fan. I think what he did with the Planet of the Apes films he did a great job. He elevated that franchise
to a whole nother level, man.
Oh my gosh, dude. Yeah. I loved it. What is it? Dawn of Planet of the Apes? The second one,
Rise, and all those,
phenomenal, dude. And part of that is Andy Serkis, but part of it is what Matt Reeves did with that franchise.
Even the newest one was still good.
Yeah, I haven't seen the newest one yet. Well, no, that's not true.
Wonderful day.
I haven't finished the newest one. I got like halfway through it, and I didn't have time to finish it. But
I got you.
I like the Batman production design. Okay. I can respect it. I think that it is a vigilante film masquerading as a Batman movie. And
Batman a vigilante?
He is, but so there's a recent take that a lot of people have had that say that that Christopher Nolan's movies are good movies, but they're not good Batman stories.
I've heard that.
I fundamentally disagree with that because I think Christopher Nolan understands the essence of what makes Batman a hero. Part of the reason
he just cast the wrong person as Batman.
Yeah, and I actually like Christian Bale's Batman because we have a good Bruce Wayne. I actually think I think he's a very good Bruce Wayne. Yeah. We just don't have enough time with him. But like when you see him, everybody, like if you watch the background of the scenes, people scoffing at this guy, like, oh God, it's Bruce Wayne. Heck, even Commissioner Gordon's like, Bruce Wayne, like when he sees him in the Dark Knight with the, and stuff. So like there's something there, but like part of the reason the Dark Knight works is not because of how good Heath Ledger's Joker is. It's the foil. It's the juxtaposition to Batman and how they play off each other. That's why it works. Yes. There's this like violent, angry man trying to like punish people with his fists for the wrongdoing done to him as a child. And then you have this chaotic being that just laughs at him as he punches him. He goes, "It doesn't matter how hard you hit me.
Yes.
I think this is all hilarious." So you jump from that to the Batman. I think the opening scene with him walking into the room surrounded by the police officers and everybody's like, "Who's this freak in this costume?"
Yeah.
Beautiful. I think there's a scene that opening sequence, he walks through the room. There's a moment where he just like starts looking at things in the room and the cops like look over and they like see something and they're like, they all go running over there. Like, "Oh, there's a blood fleck over here that we didn't see." And he's like surveying the room. World's greatest detective.
Yeah.
And then the movie very quickly becomes how do we elevate the Batman beyond just being a guy that's a really good detective? And I think that that's where it goes wrong.
Okay.
There are moments in the movie. I don't like how bulletproof Batman is in the film.
Yeah, I get
he
that.
tanks, part of the thing that works with Bale's Batman is that he could die at any moment. I never have that concern with Pattinson's Batman. If you rewatch even his Batmobile, you go, "Oh, this thing can go through anything. It could blow through concrete. There's no worry about it." Whereas with Bale's Batman, even though he has a literal tank, it gets destroyed. Yeah. And you go, "What is he going to do about this?" And then you get the Bat Pod. You can see he has contingencies, but he's constantly on his back foot. That's what makes Batman work really well. The Riddler is absolutely the worst part of the movie. That's not the Riddler. That's some other character. He's like a weird amalgamation of like Hush and the Joker and the Riddler and kind of things like that. But part of what makes the Riddler work is that he's like a narcissist who thinks he's smarter than everybody. And then Batman's like, "No, I'm actually smarter than you." And he's like, "No, you're not." Batman, because people don't realize Batman has an ego too. He doesn't like being challenged like that. So they constantly are going back and forth trying to be smarter than each other. And it's frustrating to the Riddler. That's not what happens in this movie at all. And I think that there's also an undercurrent in this film that, once again, movie snob me. There's an undercurrent of like a lot of social justice, modern talking points about privilege. And part of the thing with the whole, I didn't know what a carpet tucker was, is because he's a rich white guy. And so why would he know what an item of manual labor is, which to me is fundamentally not Batman. Right. Because Bale's Batman, remember, is told, "You don't even understand what desperation looks like." So he went and became a poor homeless guy for years to figure out what was going on in the head of criminals. Whereas this Pattinson, he's constantly told by everybody around him, "You don't understand what it's like to be a criminal. You don't understand what it's like to be desperate and poor. And you're just a rich guy doing things." And a lot of that kind of stuff just didn't hit with me. I didn't like that. I will admit the production design is very well done. But the production design is also a very modern thing, because if you look at that compared to Nolan's films, you can see a lot of influence of Christopher Nolan's movies on the Batman, just with a different color grading. And that, when I saw that, I was like, because I really wanted this movie to have its own identity, completely different and distinct from Christopher Nolan's, and we didn't get that. We get another grounded, gritty reboot of Batman. So
I think if we did the Christopher Nolan Batman movies, I think if they take that, except for what was the third one, the Dark Knight Rises. Yeah, we can kind of scrap that one. But if we took that one and instead of Christian Bale, we had Ben Affleck the entire time, I think those movies would have been perfect, because Ben Affleck, it is I think he does one of the best current versions of delivering Batman and Bruce Wayne. Yes. He embodies Batman, the animated series, the Batman that I grew up, that I knew. That is who he channels in there. Yeah. And I was like, that was hands down, that was great for me. Yeah. But aside from Michael Keaton and all those other ones, like I said, current ones. Yeah. And if we have been able to do that and then kind of just go right into the the BVS and the other ones and the Justice League and all that kind of stuff, it would have given us a little bit more. I'm interested to see what James Gunn does with his current run for DC. I am worried as I don't know what, because right now he just looks like he's doing James Gunn movies, James Gunn Superman, James Gunn. And he's, my gosh, if that ego on that guy, I'm like, I can't even look to enjoy a Superman movie because I'm just going to get flooded with James Gunn. And I don't like James Gunn that much to want to watch that type of movie. I'm just like, nah, it's too James Gunn for him. But we'll see what this side of summer looks like. So as a fellow movie snob, can you tell me, if you were to, when you're taking your approach to films and all that kind of stuff, what is it that you think that the current film industry and like what's going on? Because we've seen, like, right now we're in kind of a resurgence, and I'll put it that way a little bit, when it comes to movies and theaters and all that kind of stuff, making a little bit more money right now. Yep. I think a report came out that said they're not quite back where they were in 2019, but they're better than they were prior years, or prior years to this year. But everybody's complained about a breakdown in the quality, breakdown in the writing, storytelling, the way that things are just being sequelized, the way that these things kind of are taking the lazy approach. And with the current unknown effects of the new tariffs that are going to be implemented for Hollywood, nobody knows what that's going to do. But so it's like everybody's kind of up in the air. I've always been an advocate for you don't necessarily, if you look at like a few various studios for your content, if you're looking at Disney or Warner Brothers or Paramount and other ones, if you're looking at these particular studios for it and you're like, hey, I'm not getting what I want, well, excluding Paramount, because with that Taylor Sheridan stuff, they putting out banger after banger. Yeah. But that boy don't miss. No. It's like, okay, I think a bigger focus should be on independent film. Yeah. And independent film should be kind of pushed to the forefront. Yep. What do you think that independent film writers and independent filmmakers need to do to kind of get their stories out there, or people's approach to independent film to get it out there, to make that the forefront, so that we can go back to the days where it was like, where you didn't have these like these like 4-pillar studios where they owned everything, every IP. Yep. And you had these little ones where you had hey, this one came from MGM and this one came from Paramount. This one came from all these other studios, and you just enjoyed the films. What do you think that needs to happen? I mean, that's a lot. I think a lot of things need to happen. The main thing is there need to be a decentralization of movie studios. It needs to stop being just Hollywood and Atlanta. What we need, and what's going to be the best for movies in general, is for there to be like smaller markets of studios, kind of like how wrestling used to be back in the day. You had different territories, and they need to be pumping out movies. We need movies in the Midwest. We need movies, in the East Coast, West Coast. We need movies down South, and we need all of these people in smaller pockets of independent networks of filmmakers that are making movies that way, on a smaller budget, with more fire, with more push and more drive, that can then be elevated beyond their status by the audience. It can't just be, what we're used to is somebody rises to the top and then the studios buy them out, and then the studios make them make their slot. Exactly. Taylor Sheridan he is so good that it's hard for him to miss. But if you look at what Disney does, as trash as Ragnarok is, with Taika Waititi also made Jojo Rabbit. Jojo Rabbit's a phenomenal movie. Okay. It's actually an incredible film. It's very funny, but he also does a great job of telling a beautiful, heart-wrenching story about this child who idolizes the mustache man, which is kind of wild, I will say this. Yeah. If you have a problem with Ragnarok and you watch Jojo Rabbit, it does not feel like the same guy. It's totally different filmmaker there, but now they have him pumping out all their stuff, and they take talent and they make them make their stuff, not make their own stuff. Right, and then you look at somebody like Ryan Coogler, who just made Sinners. Yeah, I'm excited to see that one. I haven't seen it yet. You got to go see it, man. It's so good. But he's making films at another level. But then that pushed me to the second thing. If you want to make movies, you need to love making movies. You need to not just be a fan of current day films and what people are doing. There's this attitude with younger filmmakers and younger writers that the stuff that came before is problematic, and so we need to do away with that. Why do I need to look back into the past at what people have done to inform my decisions now? Well, those people put in a lot of hard work to get the film industry to where it is. The reason the film industry is as successful as it is because of people that did work in the 80s and 90s. Exactly. We have a lot of those people to thank for that. And I think being able to be a student of those films and be a student of what came before
before them. You have to be able to run the gamut. You know, I used to be really a big snob about watching old movies. I'm like, oh, that movie's old. Why do I need to see that? But now I realize watching those old movies, part of the reason people are bored is because it's not doing anything new. But that's not the point of watching those. You watch those to understand how we got to where we are now. Because if you watch it, if you watch a Tarantino movie, you're watching like 30 or 40 movies because he's pulling from all these different directors and actors and all of these different people that informed how we make movies today. And I think that that's really important to understand and then not throw that baby out with the bathwater, because I think there's a love. Art is predicated on the people that came before you and inspiring the people that come after them. And that's so on and so forth. And it's kind of a standing on the shoulders of giants situation. And a lot of people want to reinvent the wheel and feel special and feel like they're doing something unique and I'm doing something different. Well, the reason anything that you make is going to be different if you're being authentically you, because it's coming from your filter. And that's how that works. That's why there's so many musicians in the world, and a lot of them get famous and popular. It's not just the studios. Some people become popular because people like their sound and like their authenticity. And the other part of it is a fear of failure. Like, you're going to fail.
Very true.
We took a huge leap with Epicverse Studios. Even though we haven't officially launched with things, we know we're taking a huge risk, and I'm okay with that. Like, if it doesn't work out, okay, I'm going to keep trying to make movies because I love making movies. But like this attitude, and Dave Chappelle called it a brittle spirit. This attitude that if you don't succeed, you have to just give up on it. And then you weren't really passionate about it to begin with.
Exactly.
Yeah, you almost have to be self-deluded to be like, I'm going to be told no. People are going to mock me. People are going to criticize my stuff. People are going to slam doors in my face. None of that matters because I'm going to keep pushing forward. And then the final part of that is understanding the current landscape of social media and how it actually has made movie stars and stars that are the modern day stuff. The reason Rachel Zegler is a star is because they found her on the internet. And she was huge and she was massively popular. Part of the reason, unfortunately, part of the reason Justin Bieber is who he is because of the internet. A lot of these people.
I was one of those people that followed Justin Bieber before he became Justin Bieber.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Way back in the day when I used to look up like music covers and all that kind of stuff and singing, I found his videos of him doing like certain covers of like Usher songs and different ones like that. So then next thing you know, when I hear the, I heard that and I was like, wait, hold on. What? You know, it was funny though. So this is a little peek into like a little personal, but it's funny. It's funny. So, you heard me just sing that little piece. I used to be able to hit that just like Justin Bieber. And I'm going to tell you, man. So I went to a high school, Classical Academy High School here in Escondido in California. Not a lot of black people there. Not a lot of black people at that school. Yeah, so a lot of people, a lot of Justin Bieber's audience are at that school. Yeah. so you know, as a young guy that wants to try to impress these girls and whatnot, one of the easiest things that I would be able to do to get the girls' attention is just hit that note. It would be, I don't know if it was like, I don't want to call it a mating call because that sounds wild, but it'd be like,
I mean, listen, if it works.
I remember sitting there and my friend come to me, he was like, yo, Antoine, you know that Justin Bieber song, do it. And we had this big room and we call it the study hall room. Everybody's sitting there talking and doing the work and all that kind of stuff. And I'll be sitting there like, oh, and you see so many girls' heads pop up.
What was that? What? Yeah, exactly. That's funny, bro. Yeah.
And man, listen, man. If
it works, it works, bro.
It works, man. You got to do what you got to do sometimes, But hey, so. You mentioned that you, with Epicverse Studios, you guys haven't put out anything yet. You're still in your infantile stage, right? Yep. You're still building up and everything like that. I know you guys have worked on some projects. We even showed some of your trailers and all that kind of stuff. You have a couple projects that I've been informed of, Blood and Water, and then Reflections, and then I know you're working with with Jay, drunk 3PO, to get to do the animation for his for his Achromatic Chronicles, which is the all ages book, and he has blue and green out now. When you're going through that, because that's going to be an interesting thing, and I think the animation thing might be. I'm interested to see, and primarily because I've seen with Rippaverse and Rippaverse Studios, kind of getting into the animation and all that kind of stuff. I'm interested to see if what they've been able to do and what you guys are what you guys are able to do, and if you guys are able to kind of do a collab and all that kind of stuff and do all that. I love to see people work together, so I think that'd be pretty interesting. But for those projects, well, first off, just because I mentioned those, can you give the people a little bit of a breakdown as to what those projects are? Specifically, Reflection, because that's the one you guys did in that like hotel or hospital or whatever like that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about that one.
Yeah. So like all of our projects, the point of all of our projects is like to showcase us going through the process of learning how to make movies. We understood that we were amateur filmmakers. We weren't thinking, I know a lot of people think the narrative is that we think we're better than people in Hollywood. I do not think that. I'm not better than Quentin Tarantino at making movies. Heck, I'm not better than I'm not better at Taika Waititi than making movies, but I want to get there. And I'm passionate about that. And part of it was like, with, Reflection, we had just found a new team of people that we wanted to work with when it came to like the cinematography and some of the production design, and we knew we were taking it to another level, which one of the guys on our podcast, his name is Chaz, or he goes by Rough Night. Shout out to Chaz. He's been in the industry for 20 plus years, and he's been a friend of mine for a long time, and I didn't know he worked in the movie industry. So I started telling him about this production studio, and he goes, hey man, like, I've been making movies for like 20 years. I'm like, oh, okay. And then he's like, no, I'm serious. And then I saw his work and I was like, oh, you're like serious, bro. Like, not just like, not just movie, like real movies. Like you've seen his work before. And I'm like, holy cow. So he goes, he says, I'm going to help you guys get to level 1. I'm going to help you guys do that because I believe in what you're doing. And so Reflection was, we went and looked through a lot of local, cinematographers, and I started noticing this thing. I was like, everybody kind of looks the same. Everybody shoots the same stuff, all the independent stuff. No knock to independent movies at all, but there's not a lot of, everything's very homogenized because everybody's trying to do the same thing. And we found this one guy and I said, man, I don't know. He kind of seems like he has an eye for something. And so I brought him on. We talked to him. We had coffee with him. I brought him on. He goes, I got a team of people that work with me. I think we could do something with this. And so, we had 4 days and no money, and we went in and I wrote the script for Reflection, and I said, I'm going to write it and I'm going to hope that I can use this abandoned hospital that happens to be near where I live. Okay. And we had no confirmation we could use the building. None of it. I was like, if we write this, we can't use it. We got to pivot. And I wrote the script for it. I sent it to Josiah. I sent it to Chaz. They loved it. We're like, all right, let's do this. And then we reach out to the guy who owns the hospital. And he's like, yeah, I don't care. Go ahead. It's sitting empty. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is it, bro. So then we go through it and we look at it with our cinematographer and his crew. And they're like, oh my gosh, this is so amazing. And then, we bring on Suresh, who was my original guy. Cause, Suresh, he runs a company called 221B Tactical. Yeah. He's an awesome dude, and he's jacked and he's huge. And I was like, bro, you look like an action star. We got to do this. So we hit the ground running with it, and it was my first time ever directing anything. And it was there was a lot I learned. But one of the other things about being a fledgling filmmaker and fledgling in anything is you don't know what you don't know, which is something Chaz told me very early on. And it's okay to not know that if you're humble enough to surround yourself with people that do know what you don't know. Very true. That was one of the things that had to happen is like there are times where we ran into issues where I, as a director, had never faced a situation where I had 30 people looking at me going, hey, what do we do here? And normally you go, oh, well, blah, blah, blah. It was like, no. What do we do here? You're the final call on this. And so I had to make decisions and choices. And sometimes those choices people didn't agree with. And I said, I got to make it because I think it's the right choice. And at the end of the day, they were like, man, I'm glad you did that. I like this. Or, for better or for worse, whatever it is. the other side of it, which is also totally new, is that because we're in an abandoned hospital and we don't want to set up and take down equipment the whole time, me and Josiah had to stay the night there every night.
That's
it was awful. And it was actually 6 nights that people had to stay there. So me and him slept there 3 nights in a row. And the hospital was definitely haunted, bro. There was weird noises and we would wake up at the same time and it was cold and it was weird. And then, we had another buddy offer to take over for one of the nights. And then the last night that we were there, I had 2 buddies and they're like, dude, he's like, I work a 3rd shift job and I have the night off. He goes, and also I love like exploring haunted places. Can I just like walk around here all night? I'm like, yeah. And I went home and slept in my bed and I was like, this is great, but, yeah, man, it was a great experience and it was very different. And it's very different from Blood and Water, which is all outdoor, all on location.
Yeah, that's more like Viking and all that, right?
Viking but it's a different take on things with fight choreography and all this other stuff that we didn't have in other productions. And it's just a showcase that we care about this stuff and we're trying to learn as much as we can. And this is kind of like a sample platter of what we can do and where we can go in the future. So,
right. I guess you, man. Yeah. It sounds interesting. I'm looking forward to checking it out. Like I said, the trailers that you guys dropped and the little peeks that we got into it. And I'm one of those people that also like to peek behind the camera to kind of see what's going on. That's why when, perfect example of that. I watched the Yaira trailer that Eric July and the Ripperverse, they dropped the live action one, right?
Yep.
So, and I enjoyed that trailer for what it was. I thought it was pretty fun, and I thought I was like, hey, this is cool, it's interesting, and it's like being able to see the costumes and see things put in kind of almost like a reality to what it was. I thought that was a ton of fun. Yeah. But the video that I enjoyed watching more was the behind the scenes of the Yaira, of making it. Yeah. Just like following Critical Drinker with his Ryan Drake move in like short film that he made. I enjoyed watching that. And of course, you see the different flaws of room for growth or whatever like that you see. And you're like, hey, cool, you can do the critique and all that kind of stuff. But I always think that critiquing somebody that is doing things or deciding, hey, I'm going to take a risk and try this for the first time for myself, as harshly as you do somebody that has been like in the game for decades and has a much higher budget and a lot more experience or whatever like that. Those two things are not the same. No. And so it's like, okay, cool. Why would you take that approach? But I enjoyed watching all the behind the scenes shots and all that kind of stuff for it. That's always a ton of fun to check out. For me. So like watching that journey, because it inspires me. It inspires me with creativity and all that stuff. That's why I enjoy watching it. I watch so many producers, whether it be audio or film, kind of that behind the scenes stuff and watch them craft it, and then to see what it is on the like when it all comes together. How do you stay inspired when like throughout the journey? Because I know doing this is not going to be always the easiest thing. You're gonna, like you say, you're gonna run into your struggles. You're gonna have those things. You don't know what you don't know. So you talked about how to stay committed, you have to be a true fan of film or whatever it is that you're going to do. If you're going to tap out early, then you were never really a true fan of that. But there's a level of realism and reality that you have to take, when things are like, hey, this may not actually be the thing for me, or I thought that this was it for me and I'm not quite where I should be at for it. How do you stay inspired to keep going forward?
Yeah, man, that's a really good question. Yeah. Speaking to Drinker and Eric, I talked to them both after they did their stuff, and even and Ripple was just a producer, and I say just a producer. I mean, he obviously created the whole company, but I mean, he was a producer. The Sasas were the ones that directed it, but he got to see firsthand what it was like, and so did Drinker. Drinker wrote the script, and he got to see firsthand what it was like, and both of them like looked at me and were like, "Bro, filmmaking is no joke." I'm like, "Yeah." That's the reality of it. I have no problem with people being critics. It's fine. But once you actually have done it, there's a respect for that beast that you understand that like I always tell people, like, there's always a level of work that has to go into a film that needs to be respected, even if it's a bad movie. The creative decisions are the ones where you can critique the most, because those people are sitting around being able to put forward ideas. Sometimes those ideas are not good, but the hard work that goes into a movie, it goes into every single movie that exists.
Exactly.
You know? But I say that in realizing, like, the first time I watched a scene that I wrote be filmed in front of me. And it actually is in the trailer. The one of the first shots we did is in the trailer for the film. I think it's in the trailer for Reflection. It was like a light bulb like clicked. I was like, oh, this is what I want to be doing. This is like that. It's like a drug almost. I'm like, oh, I need that high again of like, I created something and we brought it to life, you know, whereas some people don't really need that. They just want to write it, and they get they get enjoyment from watching somebody else create something they've, you know, brought out of their head and stuff. But that's the thing. Like, you kind of nailed it. You have to be assured of that what you're doing is what you love to do, and that it's okay to pivot off of that if you don't want to do that. You know, like, I like content creation. I love live streaming. It's so much fun. I have a blast doing it. I hate making videos. I could not think of anything more worse than turning on a camera with nobody around and having to pretend like I'm talking to people versus like a live audience where I'm interacting with them. I love it, dude. It's so good. Or like, you know, with movie making, the part of it I don't like is all the stuff of figuring out. I'm like, all right, we got to figure out a budget. I've got to cut back on this stuff because we don't have the ability to make this happen and stuff like that. But like the thing is, you have to be self-assured that you really want to do this and that you have something to offer everybody around you. And part of that inspiration is looking at things that other people are doing and going, could I do this? Could I reach this level one day? And, you know, watching good movies helps me do that, because it makes me go, when I watch Lord of the Rings, do I think I'll ever make a Lord of the Rings? No. I don't think I'll ever reach that level. Maybe I will one day, but I would love to, and I'll work hard to do that. It's kind of like, you know, if you aim at the stars, you know, you may land on the moon kind of thing. I think that's part of the way to stay inspired. The other part of it is, like I said, you know, you have to have like an almost unhealthy level of self-confidence to believe that what you're doing is going to matter to people. You know? Yeah. Right. If you set out and go, I'm going to make something that moves people, you're probably not going to succeed. But if you go, I'm going to set out to become a student of the business and learn the craft and get exceptionally good at the craft, and then also figure out what about the craft makes me come alive, because I love working with actors. I like the cinematography and some of that stuff. I learned some of that stuff. I don't know a lot of the technical terms, but you know who does? My cinematographer. My producers, you know, the guys around me that know that kind of stuff. And so I tell them what I'm seeing in my head and they make it come to life. That part of it I love. I love working with actors. I love watching somebody go like, all right, this is what I'm thinking in my head. And I watch them process it, and then they do it and they do it well. I'm like, dude, this is what it's all about, you know? So that's the other part of it, is finding the thing that you love about it and then not letting that go. Understanding that you want to get back to that, and you'll do anything you can to get back to that space. Within reason, you know.
Yeah, 100%. But that is that. I think you hit the nail on the head with that, man. The staying inspired, and that's where you go. You transfer from the motivation and inspiration to dedication, and when it means more to you. But when there's an aspect of it that you love, and that, like you said, when you see something that you've created or that you envision, when you had an idea and then you see it become a reality, that takes it on another level, because that right there is like, and I find joy in that in just about everything. That's why I got into doing web design. That's why I got into music production. And that's why, that's one of the things, like when it comes down to, the studio and how the shows that we produce here at the studio, one of the things that I absolutely love to do is sit there with a client, and when they say they want to start a podcast or they feel like they need to improve their brand image or whatever it may be, and they come in and we do some consulting with them, and I sit there and I talk about, okay, give me your brand, and they take out this time, or hey, how about we don't even start talking about the branding or whatever like that. Let's just get to know you first, and then we can kind of build upon that. And then there's nothing better to me. It's one thing for me to see, hey, I had an idea for something and now I can see that it's created. The thing I love more than that. And the reason, what kind of pushes me when it comes to like audio production and different things like that is when I take an idea that somebody else had or what they thought they were limited in being able to do.
Yeah.
And then they're able to see themselves at a higher level for that. Like
That's awesome.
when I was in college and I was studying audio production, and I remember there was this girl and she had an amazing voice, but she had never been recorded. And so I just asked her one day and I was like, hey, I got a project I'm working on. Can you help me out with this? And she was like, okay. And being able to take her voice and when she was able to hear herself afterwards, and we do this all the time, like with this podcast, when people come in and they're like, hey, how many takes do I get to do? This is why I don't do it live, is because people sometimes they want to get it right, especially when you have musical performances on there. People want to make sure they get it right. And then when they see it back and they're like, oh my gosh. Like that's amazing. I'm like, let's go. That's what I enjoy doing, is bringing that to reality. It's a ton of fun, man.
That's awesome, man. I love that.
Yes, it is. Yeah. Well, it's been great talking with you. I don't want to take up too much of your time, but tell the people where they can find you.
Yeah. So if you want to keep an eye on the independent film stuff, check out epicverse.tv. And then we do an Epicverse live stream. Those are a little bit more silly. It's just kind of for us to interact with our fans and just interact with people and field questions as we get them. And then myself, my personal brand is just Epic Mike. You can find me on YouTube. I do a lot of live streams, a lot of gaming live streams. I do a little like podcast occasionally where I just talk about pop culture stuff. You can catch me there. And then also, as always, keep an eye on Geeks Gamers. Geeks Gamers on Locals, Geeks Gamer on YouTube. We're all over the place. Those are all the people I'm working with. And as any of those grow, rising tide raises all ships. So any of those that I'm involved with, you'll see more and more of those. Just pick one or pick all of them if you want to. And I hope you'll be entertained by it. So I appreciate you having me, man. Thank you.
No problem at all. Thank you. All right, guys. Well, thank you for joining me for another episode of the Icon Presents podcast. Be sure to check out Epic Mike. Check out his channel. Check out everything that they got going on. I'm telling you, I'm looking forward to seeing what you guys have coming up in the future, man. It's going to be so much fun to watch your growth. And I'm just here for the journey, man. I'm absolutely loving it. So with that being said, be sure to check out the Icon Presents podcast website. Go to iconpresentspodcast.com and keep up with blog posts, special announcements, behind the scenes interviews and content and everything that we have going on. Man, if I were to spill the beans now, you guys would be super excited. So with that being said, y'all take care.